Okay, today we're going to learn about chocolate. And you may ask yourself, why are we going to learn about chocolate if this is about engineering? Well, one thing you'll learn is that one of the things that drives engineering is what people like, and people like chocolate. Therefore, we will learn about chocolate. Now, the whole process begins with this thing called a cocoa tree. Now, you may not know it's a cocoa tree, but it has these yellow pods on them, and these yellow pods are what you want to get when you go harvesting. So when you get the yellow pods, farmers get them, and they cut open the yellow pod, and you get this thing with cocoa beans, and you get this white mass. Now, the next process after the step of cutting open the cocoa pod is to ferment this white mass with cocoa beans. Now, what that means is that you'll just lay it on the floor and you'll cover it with a banana leaf. And when you do that, it'll undergo a certain reaction because this cocoa mass with the cocoa beans and white stuff has yeast in it, and it'll start to develop all these different acids, and you'll have an exothermic reaction. It'll reach about 50 degrees Celsius, which is about 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you take that, what's left over about after a few days, and you dry it. After you dry it, this is our first introduction really to engineering, because then you'll roast that cocoa bean. And what your intent behind roasting the cocoa bean is to really bring out the flavor and actually gets rid of some of these volatile kind of substances within the cocoa bean. Now, the next step is we go to another step of engineering. We have a thing called a winnowing machine. Now, winnowing, if you don't know, is just like, think of something like a pecan or a nut. You take off the shell and you get what's inside. And so I'm looking at a project from Oklahoma State University, and a few students created a winnowing machine. So the whole goal behind this is that you want to get as much of the meat or much of the cocoa nib out as possible without getting in the little husk that you have. So like I said, just think about a nut. So in this process, the students had this winnowing machine. They said they can get 1.6 pounds per minute, 60 minutes per an hour, which equals to 96 pounds per an hour overall. Now, if they're 8 hours in a day, let's assume we're going to run this machine for 8 hours a day, and you have 96 pounds per an hour, you have 766 pounds per day that you're able to produce. And this is what's called our output of our machine. So this is very important because it really defines how much product we can sell. So if we want to sell like a 50 candy bars and we need 800 pounds of chocolate, great. We're just about there, and it really fulfills our purpose. So the next stage that we have is we have grinding. Grinding is a stage where we create this thing called cocoa liqueur. So we have the cocoa nib, we grind it with these granite grinders, these big granite wheels, and they go round and round and round for days, and you add in your sugar and you add in everything else that you like to really add to your chocolate to make it nice. Okay, then we go to a thing called conching, which is another heating process which gets rid of some more impurities and things that you don't want in the chocolate. Then we go to tempering, which really refines the finished cocoa liqueur, and it creates this crystalline structure which allows it to be shiny and stable and really ready for the process of selling. Now, what we'll look at an example of an actual chocolate factory. You may have seen a chocolate factory before, but first time probably you've ever seen a grinder. So this is a grinder machine that we just briefly talked about with the granite wheels, and we also see a cocoa roaster. Now this cocoa roaster is just made out of a barrel, and they go through the process of processing the chocolate. As you can see here, you can see the workers working, and you can see where they have the granite stone chocolate grinder, and they have 24 volts and 40 amps for their chocolate grinder. So why do you need to know this information? This is where engineering comes in. And I told you you're going to deal with engineering, so this is where you really want to pay attention. If you saw the previous videos, you'll actually see that we had a lot of formulas. And if you remember those formulas, you can use it here, and you'll see how it works into itself in the process of making chocolate. P equals to IV. Power equals to current times voltage. Now, in this case, we have 40 amps times 24 volts. So we multiply that out. That's all we have to do, and it's 940 watts. Now, what's that good for? It's good for telling us how much power we need to supply to our system in order to run our plant. But as you can see here, they have different equipment. So this is just one part of the equation. You have to do this for all the different elements or all the different machines you have in your shop. So I want to recap this by just saying, what is the link between engineering and something that you might need or the public needs, something like chocolate or things that people desire? One of the big steps is essentially researching and knowing what people like. So it mixes a little bit of engineering and plus just marketing and business. This is something that you don't on average get exposed to, but this is something that you might want to know if you really want to become a good engineer. It's not just all about the mathematical formulas. You also need to know about the world in general, and that's why we're drawing the world, and we're going to really bring this home when we draw out the full map of the world. It's going to take me a little while because I don't really remember how the world's shaped, but you'll see after a couple of minutes. But anyway, the second part is if you really want to understand how to do engineering, it's not just a matter of equations, it's also a matter of learning from what other people did before. In this example, we have a project that was done by Oklahoma State University by 3 seniors with a company called Triad Enterprises in Oklahoma City, I believe. And they used their resources to be able to develop this machine and their expertise in order to develop this machine. So engineering takes also a lot of teamwork, expertise, and really knowledge in prior studying. So one of the things you'll discover if you read the project from the Oklahoma State University students is that they actually read through other projects and other inventions that were done similar to theirs. So that's where research really has a role in developing engineering. The second thing is that we also saw another chocolate factory in Grenada. So not every chocolate factory publishes their information about how they do things or how they run their plant. So this is where a lot of research also comes into play. You might not get what you want first of all, but if you keep looking, there might be someone who just gave you enough information to allow you to really develop what you need. And with the internet, it's amazing because all you have to do is keep searching, and someone in the world, someone published information that other people are unwilling to publish. So with that said, what we'll do right here, the reason why we're drawing the map, apart from just showing you the world knowledge that you need, is telling you where can you get your resources. So we have the cocoa tree, right? But we also have other ingredients that we need. We have things like sugar that we need. And unfortunately, you can't get a lot of those ingredients from the same place. Like let's say if you're out in Arizona, you can't get any of those ingredients really locally because they don't grow in Arizona. They grow only in specific portions of the world. So you have to understand where in the world can you get the materials that you need. And you also have to take into consideration that cocoa is something like coffee, is something like wine, like grapes or wine. Depending on where it's grown, what conditions they're grown in, what variety, it's all going to change the flavor. So a lot of chocolate companies do a lot of testing and a lot of investigation to discover where is the perfect place to get chocolate. It's like an adventure. So what we'll draw here, we'll draw some lines on the map and we'll try to map out where we can get the best chocolate in the world. So we're going to take a little trip if you don't mind. So let me get a color. Let me just choose gray. And first of all, we're going to draw where we can get our sugar because we need sugar for our chocolate if we want it to be sweet. Let's just choose the color we can see. And so now we're in Kenya, Tanzania, we're in like Sudan, we're in Central African Republic, we're in Ghana, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, we're in, let me see, like near Gambia, around Turkey, Saudi Arabia, India, a little northern Australia, we're in Brazil, Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Mexico, Louisiana, Florida, and now we need our green. Our green is going to represent our cocoa, and we can find it in places like Cuba, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Mexico, Peru, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil. Let's see, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Nigeria, Togo, Cameroon, Congo, and Philippines, a few other countries also, Vietnam. And so we have cocoa in our green and we have sugar in our gray. Now, most of the world's cocoa, 60%, comes from Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. So you may want to look that up just to do some exploration if you want to start your own cocoa factory. And right now you have all the information you need really to build your own chocolate factory.